Though video games have taken many forms over the years, all of them were designed for the same purpose, to entertain. But more importantly, games are tailored to make people feel good. Although dying endlessly or getting stuck on a specific level can be infuriating, players are always left smiling from ear to ear when discovering a secret or when the main campaign is finally done and dusted. However, there are a couple of titles that take things to a whole other level, offering a dopamine rush that is sure to last a lifetime. And that's what we're here to talk about today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 times gaming could not get any better. Number 10, Entering the Village, Resident Evil 4. Now, it's easy to forget how much cynicism surrounded Resident Evil 4 upon launch. I mean, it was delayed for years, started from scratch 4 times, and discarded the entire zombie premise, which kind of made the series iconic. But mere minutes into a first playthrough, there was no question the developers were absolutely cooking. You see, Resident Evil 4 kicks off with secret agent Leon S. Kennedy entering a Spanish village where he's attacked by infected locals called Los Ganados. For the first few encounters, these creeps seem pretty much like the zombies Leon has encountered in the past. However, it's a different story altogether after arriving in the village. After being attacked by the relentless horde, players will instinctively try to seek shelter in a nearby shack. Unfortunately, this strategy backfires big time since it encourages the Ganados to form a coordinated attack coming into the house from all directions. After witnessing the Ganados using weapons, projectiles, booby traps, and instant kill chainsaws, it's obvious that this deadly bunch aren't as brain dead as they appear. After narrowly surviving the ordeal, the game's title suddenly appears on screen, reminding players that this is exactly the type of pulse racing experience that they were hoping for. Number 9, Riding Through Mexico, Red Dead Redemption. Over the years, Red Dead Redemption has been repeatedly lauded for its flawless graphics, well-rounded gameplay, and focus on characterization. But another aspect of Rockstar's magnum opus that just can't be overstated is its music. Composers Bill Elm and Woody Jackson compiled a beautiful soundtrack that perfectly accentuates John Marston's grizzled persona and doomed mission. The best example of how impeccably this music is utilized is when the questionable outlaw rides through towards Mexico, with Gonzalez's Far Away playing in the background. Although the route is relatively straightforward, the enriching tune in Gonzalez's soft timbre makes the sequence memorable. Lyrics like "Who are you trying to impress? Steadily creating a mess" really hits home as it becomes clear that Marston is discarding everything he cares for in order to embark on a mission that is destined to end in tragedy. If an alternative song was used, this scene may not have invoked anything soulful or meaningful. Instead, we would just be looking at a guy riding through a bridge on a horse. Thankfully, Rockstar selected the perfect melody to represent the next chapter in Marston's journey, creating one of Red Dead Redemption's most unforgettable moments in the process. Number 8, The Giraffes, The Last of Us. Naughty Dog's The Last of Us follows Joel and Ellie, who do all they can to survive in a world ravaged by mind-altering fungi. When the pair aren't busy fighting clickers and bloaters, they're forced to endure the worst of humanity, including violent clans and cannibals. For this reason, most of the defining moments of The Last of Us involve tragedy, including when Joel loses his daughter or when he wipes out the fireflies to rescue Ellie. That's why it's iconic how one of the game's most pivotal sequences is when the duo encounter, of all things, a herd of giraffes. Now, whoever concocted the idea in the writer's room was probably met with a reasonable amount of skepticism. After all, throwing a few giraffes into a post-apocalyptic game revolving around mushroom zombies is quite bizarre, especially just before the grueling climax. And yet, it's arguably the most inspiring moment in the entire story. With mankind at each other's throats for supplies and food, it seems impossible for anyone or anything to survive. To witness these beautiful creatures not just existing but thriving in the chaos is exactly what Joel and Ellie needed to see to realize that there is still good in this world. Number 7, The First Leap, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. After the unprecedented success of Breath of the Wild, it was a delight when a direct sequel was announced in 2019. Unfortunately, players had to wait 4 years for The Legend of Zelda follow-up to see the light of day. Despite receiving immeasurable hype, Tears of the Kingdom was another triumph for Nintendo's beloved series. On top of that, this entry proved almost immediately that its scale far exceeded its predecessor. Not even 5 minutes in, Link dives off a platform preparing to land in the water below. Although it looks like Link will hit the bottom any second, the Hylian hero just keeps falling and falling and falling, and at this point you have enough time to admire your surroundings, observing that there are floating islands littered across the sky as far as the eye could see. Even when you do land on the surface below, you're still on a sky island, meaning that there's a whole other land to explore below this. Although Breath of the Wild was a gargantuan game, this single shot proved Tears of the Kingdom's world was significantly larger. Also, having the title drop right beside Link during this freefall was pure perfection. Number 6. Meeting Veas, Shadow of the Colossus. Fumito Ueda's tragic sandbox title follows a young man called Wander who's tasked with eliminating 6 colossi in order to retrieve his lost love. Based on that premise, players knew that they would face off against a group of towering creatures. After all, it's right there in the title. As such, it shouldn't be shocking when you first confront the first colossus, Veas. And yet, there are very few words to describe the sensation you feel upon seeing the Minotaur-like beast for the first time. Standing approximately 70-foot tall, Veas kind of looks less like a monster and more like a sentient mountain. With Wander barely reaching his foe's ankle, even the cockiest players will struggle to believe that they can actually take this titan down. While first-timers are trying to process what they're looking at, another thought then occurs to them. This is the first boss. Since the adversary serves as a preamble of what's to come, this confrontation indicates that Veas, despite his immeasurable size, is one of the smallest enemies in the game. Although Wander battles far larger colossi later on, it goes without saying that this, right here, leaves a huge impression. Number 5. The Legacy of Mario, Super Mario Odyssey. Now, there are many moments throughout the Super Mario franchise that fans will remember to their dying day. Using the whistle in Super Mario Bros. 3, flying with the winged cape in Super Mario 64, that moment you discover that Super Mario Bros. 2 is just a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, and then there's Super Mario Odyssey. Although the Switch platformer is a marvel from start to finish, there's a particular moment in New Donk City that definitely stands out. After eliminating the boss, Mayor Pauline thanks the Italian hero with a city-wide festival. After accessing a pipe, Mario reaches the other side in his pixelated form, where he must traverse through girders and jump over barrels, much like when the mustachioed maestro debuted in 1982's Donkey Kong. In that moment, it's apparent that this festival isn't just a way of saying thanks, but a celebration of Mario's long-lasting legacy. Also, once you get that jingle, Jump Up Superstar, in your head, well, it will never bloody leave. This sequence could have come across as pure nostalgia bait, but it perfectly demonstrates the influence the lovable plumber has had on the gaming industry. Even after 40 years, Super Mario's popularity has never been stronger. Number 4. Shoot to the Moon, Portal 2. There aren't many games that exemplify perfection quite like Portal. Though the sequel was expected to be solid, it seemed unlikely that Valve would actually capture lightning in the bottle again. Against all the odds, Portal 2 exceeded the original in many regards, having Chell join forces with her old nemesis GLaDOS, and it brought a new dynamic to the pair, especially after the nefarious machine was transformed into a potato. The new mechanics were exquisite, the puzzles were more elaborate than ever, and Stephen Merchant killed it as the new antagonist Wheatley. Even though Portal was sublime, Portal 2 felt like an epic, especially during the Showdown. With Wheatley unable to maintain control of the facility, Chell only has a few minutes before things go kablam. And after a sensational battle with the deranged robot, the ceiling collapses, revealing the moon in the starry sky. Realizing that there's an active portal directly below Wheatley, Chell realizes what she has to do. After firing her portal gun at the moon, Wheatley is sucked through to the other side, trapping the idiotic AI in space forever. Even though Portal is brimming with innovation from the get-go, it's evident that Valve saved all of their best ideas for this show-stopping finale. Number 3. Farewell Lee, The Walking Dead. In Telltale's episodic adventure, a zombie outbreak occurs exactly when convicted killer Lee is being transported to prison, allowing him to escape. Upon stumbling upon a young girl called Clementine, Lee agrees to help her find her parents. Even though The Walking Dead is an emotional roller coaster, Episode 4's climax is a double whammy gut punch. Moments after Clem is kidnapped, Lee is scratched by a walker, meaning that it's only a matter of time before he joins the undead. Realizing that he's on borrowed time, Lee does everything he can to save Clem. As palpable as this moment is, however, the episode of 5 hits way harder. Although the kidnapper is set up to be evil incarnate, the motivation behind his actions are kind of justified. Near the beginning of the game, Lee and his companions ransacked a seemingly abandoned car of supplies, oblivious that it belonged to the now kidnapper, which led to his family dying. Believing that Lee is an immoral thief, which is technically true, the kidnapper took Clem, assuming she'd be safer with him. Although Lee is sorry for what he did, he kills the abductor and retrieves Clem. As hard-hitting as this revelation is, though, it's still not over. As they flee, Lee's infection begins to kick in, meaning that he has mere moments before becoming a walker. And just to make matters worse, you have to decide what happens next, put Lee out of his misery or abandon him. Although the majority chose to mercy kill him, it doesn't make it any easier to pull the trigger. Number 2, the truth about the boss. Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. Now, Metal Gear Solid 3 opens with CIA agent Naked Snake heading into the USSR to retrieve a Soviet scientist. After completing his mission, his boss, fittingly called The Boss, suddenly switches sides before leaving Snake for dead. After learning the boss is going after an atomic weapon, Snake has no choice but to track down and kill his former leader. At first, this plot sounds pretty on brand. After all, Metal Gear Solid is renowned for devising stories involving a world-ending threat that is also a deeply personal tale to the hero. However, nobody, and I mean nobody, was ready for that ending. After putting the boss in the ground, Snake is relieved knowing that he narrowly prevented a nuclear war. But in the closing moments, it becomes clear that the truth was far more complex than anyone could have imagined. It turns out the boss was ordered to infiltrate the Soviets by disguising herself as a defector. However, everything changed when the Soviet leader inexplicably detonated a nuclear warhead in the USSR. To prove the US government had no involvement, the boss took the blame and allowed Snake to kill her. Even though the boss was perceived as a traitor to her allies, her government, and her country, she sacrificed herself to bring about world peace, knowing history would vilify her. Although Metal Gear Solid 3 is a work of art, few gaming moments hit with quite the same impact as this last-minute bombshell. And number 1, the Showdown, Halo 3. Trilogies always have kind of been tricky to pull off. No matter how good the first 2 entries are, there's no guarantee that the third one won't end up as a dud. Now, Halo 1 and Halo 2 knocked it out of the park, but it was an unknown quantity whether Bungie could deliver the hat trick. Not only was Halo 3 a rousing success, however, it served to be the perfect ending for Microsoft's flagship franchise at the time. Despite losing many of his closest friends in the final battle, Master Chief uses a warthog to blast his way into the heart of the enemy stronghold. The helmeted commander successfully destroys the Covenant and the Flood, seemingly sacrificing himself in the process. With the Covenant War finally at an end, peace across the galaxy seems feasible for the first time in generations. And just when it seems that the celebrations couldn't be more justified, it's revealed that Master Chief is still alive and kicking. Always the soldier, the legendary hero orders Cortana to wake me when you need me before returning to cryonic sleep. Halo 3's ending wasn't just epic, it was like 10 Avengers Endgames for gamers. If this threequel served as the end of the Halo saga, or at the very least Master Chief's version of the storyline, it would have felt right. It would have been sad to say goodbye to the Spartan super soldier for good, but also deeply rewarding to see him and his platoon go out at the top of their game.